welcome to another episode of Talk'n TRM, the podcast dedicated to travel risk management. I'm excited again. I always get really excited because the thing is, I love my guests. So when I get another person who I really, really adore and admire, and I think is a good friend too, to actually be able to come and talk to on a podcast, I get even more excited than I normally would do. So I will be introducing this lady very, very shortly. We have known each other for a good few years now. I don't even want to count the years, Sam. Actually, let's not do that. Let's just say it's been a few years. Throughout our travel lives, when we were sort of working that side, and actually more so now since we've both crossed over and become consultants in different fields, but the work that we do complements each other, and it comes up again and again. And just to give people a little bit of a taste, what we're talking about is travel risk on one side and sustainability on the other. So without further ado, I'm going to ask my first question, and I'm going to get this wonderful lady to introduce herself. So if you would be so kind, who are you and what do you do?
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here with you. I'm Sam Cande. I'm the CEO of Responsible Futures. It's an organisation that is dedicated to guiding, inspiring, and educating people and businesses to become more sustainable and socially responsible. We do that through consulting, through training, educational webinars. Also have my own podcast, Sustain Talks. Do masterclasses as well. But I spent 8 years in the business travel industry, but my journey started before that, about 10 years ago in sustainability, when I was the director of Sustain magazine. And I think that's where I first found my passion for sustainability. And then over the years in business travel, it kind of took a bit of a backtrack, and actually the magazine closed down because 10 years ago, sustainability wasn't as big of a topic as it is today. So I carried on business travel show, director of that, and then became the country manager of Travel Do, an online booking tool. And that's when I first started to get back into sustainability, because we had on the booking tool, you could see the carbon footprint of the flights when you went to book the flights. And nobody really noticed it at the time, but it was always there. Anyway, as sustainability started to become a little bit more popular, I realised that I got to an age, I'm 50 now, and I got to an age where I wanted to have a more purpose-driven career, and made the decision to leave my job and go it alone and launch Responsible Futures. Very, very scary, but very exciting as well. And I wanted to educate people through my background being in exhibitions, conferences. I wanted to run educational webinars and share information with people on how they can be more sustainable and socially responsible. So I've been doing it for almost 3 years. I absolutely love having a purpose-driven career, having so many amazing conversations. And I am also an assessor with CSR accreditation. I work with a green pension organisation, with electric car organisation. I'm an advisor to Eco-Friendly Web Alliance. I also work very closely with Earthly Nature-Based Solutions. And yeah, it's been a whirlwind, but very, very difficult running your own business. But the purpose-driven aspects has been amazing.
Wow, thank you, Sam. There's so much that I kind of want to touch on there. Let's just talk about very briefly the setting up your own business thing, right? Because that's obviously not easy at all. And it's not easy to leave, a salary and actually be able to then go and do something that, because you have a drive and a purpose, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to pay the mortgage, does it, every month? And it's quite stressful. So you're 3 years in, which is amazing. Well done. She's a bit of a mentor to me, honestly. I have to look at her and go, she's doing it. I can do this too. How have you? I want to go back and I want to touch on the industry and sustainability in a second, because I know that we're very passionate about this. But how are you finding the receptiveness of corporates to the stuff that you're doing? Has it changed since you first started? Does it feel like there's more coming? Are people making the changes that we want, that we need to be made? What's your opinion on that?
If I'm really honest, I think that 2 years ago, I would say that people were like more receptive to it because it almost, I think sustainability almost blew up, and everyone was like, what is it? What do I need to know? Where can I go? Now I feel like companies are almost putting it as in a bit of a tick box. And I do think that that's going to change with regulations. And also, a lot more larger companies are changing their policies to make sure that when you go for an RFP or a tender, that you have to be able to not only show your sustainability credentials by saying, hey, we plant trees, but actually giving facts and figures. And they're saying, if you don't have a carbon reduction plan, if you don't have a net zero plan, then we're not going to work with you. So I think that and it's very different in the travel industry. So I still work very closely with the travel industry. Most of the training that we do is within the travel industry. And, it's difficult because I love travel. I don't travel as much as I used to, and I'll go into that a little bit later. But there's so much risk around travel now, relating it specifically to this podcast, that some businesses are like, look, we need to be more sustainable and we're going to travel less. And then you see them traveling all over the world and you think, I thought you was going to be traveling less. So it kind of doesn't make sense. And I get a lot of eco anxiety over seeing that. And, when you're working with companies that, I want the travel companies to do really well, and travel is really unsustainable in most parts, flying around the world and moving goods, and is really carbon intensive, but it's everyone's going to have to do it. And also it's really hard because the government in the UK aren't, I don't think, are being as supportive when they're opening new oil and gas licenses, and changing the dates of the electric vehicles to from 2025. And I think those kind of things, it makes it very difficult. But I keep going. There is, on the other hand, there is a lot of response whenever, and I always find that whenever I do post on LinkedIn, I'm a prolific LinkedIn poster. The response I get back is always really, really, really positive, and people are really grateful for the information that I put out. I guess it's my own limited beliefs that think, that I think that people were saying one thing yet doing another.
It's difficult, isn't it? And I think it's such an important topic with the travel side. And before we really dive into your why, because obviously it's such an interesting story, and the passion that you have within this is what keeps you going. And all of us, I think, when we're not quite making the money we need to be making, it is just the passion that drives us, right? But the travel and sustainability question is just tough, isn't it? You and I have had hundreds of conversations around this offline, and none of us are saying don't travel. Like there's too many good things around traveling that are good for humans, that are good for us seeing our family and our friends, and the education that comes with it, and the cultural understanding, and all of these things are really, really important. What we're saying is do it with purpose and do it with some sort of reflection ability to actually consider, is this the right thing to do? Because, and I'm very outspoken about this and have been for a long time, and I know you feel the same, but the travel industry has made traveling incredibly easy to do, and over the last 10 years a lot more cost effective. It might not feel like that right now, as we're in a recovery from the pandemic, and obviously travel is more expensive right now, but we've made it excessively easy. and we still continue as an industry. You only have to put the television on and, everyone's advertising a holiday and they're doing this and they're doing that. There's nothing wrong with that. We are to a degree entitled to a holiday. It's an interesting word that I choose there, but we feel we are, and it is good for us. But do we need to be going away 17, 18, 30 times a year on a business trip? I've managed business programs all my working life, and you question some of these trips. Really, Hong Kong for 2 days, and then another week later you're in Hong Kong for another 2 days, and then you do it again. These are the questions we need to start raising. And it's the reduction piece rather than what we seem to be hung up on in the travel industry, which is just emissions, right? So we do it, and then hopefully we track it enough, and hopefully we can then offset it, although that's quite questionable as well. So it's a really interesting topic, and it's something that I personally feel the travel industry kind of needs to get a hold of and do more with.
Yeah, and as you said, we've had so many conversations about this, and I think that the way that travel changed from 10 years ago is it became so simple to jump on and off
Yeah.
planes like they're buses. And I think with the rise of low cost airlines, it became really cheap, really easy that you can jump on a plane, go to a conference in a different country. But it got to the point where it was, and last year I saw some people that went to 5 different conferences in 5 different countries, one week after the other, seeing the same people, having exactly the same conversations where the topics of the conferences were exactly the same. And that's the bit that I think
Yeah.
we need to stop. I think that that travel should be valued. When I was a child, we used to have one holiday a year. It was a huge expense. We'd save my parents would save all of their money for this trip. And I think that we need to get back to valuing travel. The other thing is, I love in person. I love going to conferences and meetings. But again, I've limited that to not go to, I don't do international travel. I try as much as I can to do one, maybe 2 flights a year at most, and I keep a really close eye on my carbon footprint. I used to jump on a plane 20 times a year without even thinking about it. And I used to go to those 5 conferences as well, and see the same people and have the same conversations. And I think that that's the thing. It's about saying, do I really, really need to go? What is the purpose of this? And actually, when you have your own business, you question it not just because of your footprint, but also because of how much it costs. And all of a sudden, when you don't have a huge company expense account, then you really think a lot more about what you go to, when you go, how you get there, the cost of getting there, and also your footprint as well. But yeah, it's changed, and I think that we need to go back to really considerable, responsible travel. I call it is do you need to go? And questioning, the first thing that you do is why, and do I really need
And
to
it's
go?
so difficult, isn't it, when in our psyches we like going. Sometimes we make up trips and reasons that we need to go to a trip because we want to go to a country. So it's such a change. So let's let's get into your why, Sam. What because these are big changes you've made, and like I say, huge. I just have so much respect for you, but I've also sort of followed you from a perspective of what you started doing with your carbon tracking. I was like, actually, do you know what? I'm going to do that too, and I managed to reduce this year too massively. So I was really pleased with myself. But what was it that made you do this? And it might be really obvious to people because obviously we're like, well, the bloody planet's dying, surely. But let's really get into that because some people are able just to kind of go whoop and not think about this. And for others, you talked about eco fatigue, did you call it? Or eco anxiety, sorry,
Anxiety.
as well. So
Mm.
yes, please.
I mentioned it a little bit before in my introduction. I was coming up to the age of 50. I've always worked for very large corporates. Always an unbelievable, very grateful for the salary that I earned throughout my years. But as I was coming up to the age of 50, I was getting sick of, okay, we need another million and we need another million, and you've got to work more and you've got to work harder and you've got to travel more. And I was working from, like, leaving my house at 7 o'clock in the morning and getting back at 8 o'clock in the evening, and it just became so I just didn't see the purpose. I didn't, the companies that I was working for, I didn't feel that there was a huge responsibility for the individuals. I didn't feel valued, and the changes that I made to a purpose-driven career, when I was thinking about it, I was thinking, what can I do that is really purpose-driven, but what am I passionate about as well? And when I'd worked in sustainability 10 years ago, before business travel, I really had a massive passion for sustainability, but it wasn't ready at the time. And I was just in a position where I had some savings, and I knew what I wanted to do, and I set out to do it. I think the biggest change for me has been, personally, it's not about the money. It's not about what I buy. I don't earn, but I don't spend. Every single buying decision has become a big decision. Before, it was never a big decision. I used to go shopping and never look at the prices of things. I used to book trips and not look at the prices of things. And now, every decision, whether it's food, whether it's clothes, whether it's events, whether it's travel, whatever it is, there's a really big thought process that goes behind it, which is about two things: reducing my emissions, and also cost. And I, because I read and see and talk sustainability and climate crisis every single day, I'm really close to what's going on. And I think that what is happening now and where we're going to be in 10 years' time, I can see where we are in 10 years' time if we don't urgently make the changes now. I don't have children, so for me, it's never been about my children's futures. But I actually think that, even at my age, I think that we're going to see challenges in 10 years' time that are really, really going to cause every single person, no matter where you live, are going to cause us problems. You've only got to look at the recent flooding that we've had this last week. Whether that actually affected my walk that I like to go. I love to go and walk by the reservoir, and I couldn't because it was completely flooded. My long Wellingtons wouldn't even get through the water. I've never seen that before. The heat waves that we had last year. Last year was the hottest year that has been recorded globally. And these kind of things, getting food. I remember last year, I really liked tomatoes and went to the supermarket. There were no tomatoes. You couldn't get a tomato. You can get eggs. Eggs is part of my diet pretty much every single day. You couldn't even get any eggs. Food scarcity and floods and heat waves, that's going to be every day. And the amount of time that we're seeing these natural disasters is becoming more regular, and that is only going to increase and increase and increase and increase. And that's scary for me. That's scary to the cost of living. Like, our costs of living are going up so much, and we I worry about that. I worry about how, you just got to look at the
Yeah.
number of food banks
Yeah.
that are out there.
Yeah.
Had we heard about food
Yeah.
banks 3 years ago? Not in this country. So all of these things are having a massive effect on us. And then and that's why I wanted to do what I could. I try. I know in at times I'm a little bit pushy and a little bit outspoken, but I do believe that if everybody just did a little bit less, then we would be in a better position. So if everybody a little bit less red meat and travelled a bit less and didn't buy
From Sheen.
all the time. And yeah, if we didn't spend, like, if everyone did a little bit, then we wouldn't be in this position, and we'd be able, I believe, that it is possible. But it's that difference between extremism and living our everyday lives. So
It feels
yeah,
like,
that's my why.
thank you. I'm just listening to you going, and I need to say this to her now. It feels like this seismic change that everyone's been sort of talking about is now. It's now, like it should have been 10 years ago, but it wasn't. And I think it's so interesting, the sustainability thing in travel, because we were carbon counting 10 years ago, but nobody was interested in it, and we weren't doing it that well. So travel didn't really kind of develop that until the last sort of 2 to 3 years, when there's been an awful lot more going on. There's some great companies out there really moving things forward in that space. But again, we focus on the emissions piece. We don't focus on the bit that we need to change as people. And it's sort of, you sort of wonder, you can talk to different communities, you can talk to different companies, you can talk to different age groups, and everyone seems to have a very different opinion on this, which of course in some ways is good within the workforce, because I think as the younger generations are coming through, they are really pushing this agenda through because it's their future, right? And their children's future and so on. And they feel that they've been handed something that, the generations above have not taken the responsibility they should have taken. And so that things are happening, but you have this apathy with people who just kind of go, it's not, I can't tell you how many people I still talked about global warming isn't real, climate change isn't real. And you're like, um, right. Just talking about the two things you just detailed there, in the UK, we can feel quite distant from it. We're not in an earthquake zone. We don't have volcanoes. We don't really have national disasters. I mean, it hits 2 degrees and we're freaking out totally. So it's a very different experience for us, and we seem to just kind of get rid of it. But you only have to look across to America and some of the experiences they've had, to Australia, to the wildfires that are getting worse and worse every single year, to Greece this year with the fires that rage through. It's not getting it's I remember when I was a little girl and getting into this for the first time, probably when I was about 15, 16, and I found out about animal testing, and I was like, what the hell is this? Why are we doing this? And I somehow felt, as I grew up and became an adult, we'd be taking care of this stuff and we'd be changing this stuff, because we were talking about chopping the rainforest down then. That was when Body Shop was at their heyday and all this kind of stuff was going on. And we've got worse. We've got so much worse than better,
Mm,
as far as, how we buy, how how we consume, I think is the word. Yet
mm.
we've never had more information in front of us to tell us that we shouldn't be doing this. When the World Health Organization is talking and all these huge organizations, and then you have governments, unfortunately, not doing the same thing, it becomes really contradictory, doesn't it? And people don't always know where to go.
I was just going to say, but when I really look at it and I think 4 years ago, would we be having this conversation?
No,
Absolutely
true.
not. And would I be able to post stories every single day about sustainability? Absolutely not. So I do think that, the times are changing, that companies are setting net zero goals, that they are prioritizing reducing their emissions, and people are too. And I think a massive part of that was
Yeah.
was COVID, that we it was for everybody. All of a sudden, walking in nature was one of the best things that you could do. And I think people's um, understanding of our forests and our lands have really, really improved. Although we have a real problem with biodiversity, I do think that people have woken up a little bit to, you know what, I can look out my window, I can go 5 minutes, I can go to the forest or walk along the beach, and that they can see it and feel it, and they know it's there. That wasn't the case. It wasn't the
And
case
that's
4
so
years
true,
ago.
and that's such a positive way of looking at it, because it can sometimes just feel like you're on your own thinking about it, can't you? And the world doesn't seem to be changing quick enough. And you're right, there is that, and there are people who are thinking like that and are aware of the effects that nature have on us, right, as a positive thing for our mental health, which is essential. If I didn't get a forest walk in once a week these days, I'm like, what's going on?
Oh, absolutely. And
Mm,
I just want to add something else to that as well, and that is about the you
mm.
mentioned about younger people, and they want to work for companies that are doing good. They have woken up to, you can't just offer a free breakfast and that's going to be acceptable. They want flexible working. They want to be able to work for companies that they can see that they're giving back, that social value is really important to them. So that attracting talent and retaining talent has become a really big part of the sustainability and social responsibility conversation. You want to work for a business that you can see is doing good. And I've seen so many great businesses that are doing good, that are attracting the best talent. And I've seen companies that are doing it really badly and they're losing talent to those
That's
good
strong.
businesses.
That's really strong, and that's across all industry, right? It's not just looking at certain sectors. You're seeing this across everything. Okay, that's strong.
Mhm.
Good. I
Absolutely.
have a lot of faith in these younger generations. I'll support them in everything I can do, but I do have a lot of faith in them. So, with all this in mind, then, like thinking about how we can take steps forward, how we can get better, whether that we when we look at our sort of tips at the end of the podcast, it's really however you want to sort of take that. So we could take it from somebody who's looking and wanting to reduce, as opposed to, how do we make these changes, I guess, and what are your steps and what are your tips to kind of help people on this journey?
So for me, it's have the conversation. If they're not doing something about it within your company, start up a sustainability group, or join the CSR group, or get involved, educate yourself. There is so much free content. You go to YouTube and look up Responsible Futures. Shameless
You
plug.
can.
There's 90 videos, free videos on there that you can have a look at what's going on. um, LinkedIn, I find just so much fabulous content. All of the news channels, if you look at BBC, if you look at Sky, if you go to Guardian, they've all got climate pages. So go and educate yourself as much as possible. The green sector for jobs is probably the most growing industry. PwC said that green jobs are growing 4 times the rate of the overall UK employment
Wow.
market. Um, Zero will deliver 725,000 jobs by 2030. So as an industry, and every single job now is related to green. When I go into companies, I'm not just training salespeople or frontline people. We're talking to marketing people, we're talking to accounting people, we're talking to operations people. It really touches every single department, so I think that's really important. I did also just want to point on
Mm.
something else. I don't know if you've seen, but this morning the World Economic Forum Global Risk Report was
Seen it
came
yet?
out today. Um, I'll ping it to you immediately after. The current risk landscape, the number one is extreme
Wow.
weather on the survey. The number one, and that's the current risk landscape. When you look at short term and long term, over short term, over 2 years, the number one is misinformation and disinformation. Number two is extreme weather events. But what's interesting is when you look at 10 years, out of 10 of the risks, the top four are related to climate. Extreme weather events, critical change to our systems, biodiversity loss and ecosystem collapse, natural resource
Wow.
shortages. That is crazy. That those risks that they're out now, it is clear that that is affecting everyone globally, and I think that like I watched a conference online this morning, and then the report came out straight after that, and I just was like, look, this if you're not doing it now, get involved, understand it, get your head around it, speak to people. That the other thing that I find within this sector is so many people. If somebody sent me a message and said, oh, have you got 30 minutes, I just want to have a conversation, I just want to understand a bit more, I'm not going to charge for that. I'm
Yeah.
going to have the conversation with anyone and everyone. If people have questions, if people ping me a question, if they contact me on LinkedIn, I will respond to them and send them links and advice and videos and help and answer their questions as much as possible. There are so many people willing to help and educate and provide information. It's a wonderful, wonderful sector, and I'm really proud to be part of
I
it.
only saw, like, I see glimpses of the sector because obviously I work right next to it. But I know when we went to the big event in London where obviously everybody came together, it was the big one, wasn't it? Um, and that for me was, I haven't been to an event like that for quite a long time. And I did because obviously I feel extremely passionate about this. And I wanted to be amongst other people that felt the same. And what really amazed me was you had people from every single generation there, and lots of different backgrounds. Like, this is a human requirement now, this isn't about companies, this is about or countries, this is about the planet as a whole coming together, and us as the leading species, if you like, not necessarily for the right reasons, but the dominant species who are in control of destroying this, how we then bring this back. And there are so many people who are passionate about this. And actually, by associating yourselves with groups, by talking to people, by educating yourself, you can feel less alone, and you can feel that the steps that you're taking, other people are taking them with you as well. So it's not that, because often, like, what often you hear people say, well, I'm just me, right? What can I do? The point is, you can and you're part of this, as is everybody. I love if everyone just did a little bit better, that is a really good place to be. No one's saying never eat meat again. No, I do say that sometimes to people, but never do this, never do that, never travel. People are very concerned when you and I get on a screen and they think we're going to be anti-travel. We're not anti-travel. We're just asking you to consider what you're doing, because why would we want to screw this planet up over the next 10 years? That's just, we're never, we're not going to get it back. And we're certainly not going to get species back that we lose, and areas of the planet that we lose. Um, and it's frightening and it's scary, but we have to jump into it and we have to deal with it. And I think that's what I'm hearing from you, Sam, and that's what you did. She left her job, she did it all. And look at what's going on now. And I'm super proud of you, and I'm super proud to be able to say I know you. So it's incredible. Um, Thank you so much, Sam. I've been wanting to get you onto this for such a long time. In fact, I had a hit list of people when I first started this, and you were there. So I then had to actually have the confidence to come and ask you, which is silly because I've known you for so long. But we all we all do it. We all have our moments. But I want to say, from a personal thank you, a heartfelt thank you for everything that you are doing. I honestly, anybody I speak to about sustainability, when it hits my role in what I do, your name comes up again and again and again, and you need to be really, really proud of that.
Thanks.
Um, Anyone who doesn't know what Sam's doing, get in touch with her immediately. But let's all just try and work together and remember this is scary, but there are people out there that care, a lot of people that care, and a lot of people who are helping people make the change. For what it's worth, I'm going to do one closing line because it's come up all the time. It is not sustainability versus travel risk, not versus. It is part of the same thing. Your risks are sustainability in lots of different ways now, be that actually when people are traveling because of weather conditions or because of climate change or because of you managing your program in a non-sustainable way. So just going to close that at that point, just to make that point. Sam, have you got any closing comments? And then I will end today.
Yeah, my closing comment would be it's a mindset change, and it's not, as you said, and as I said earlier, we're not saying stop, and also think about the business opportunity that you can have by doing good. And that is really important, that there is so much opportunity with sustainability and social responsibility, and keep that in mind and look at it positively and not in a negative way. So that'd be my closing comment.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sam. So you have been listening to Bex Deadman, aka Travel Risk Bex, on Talking TRM, the podcast. Our special guest, Sam Cande, the sustainability guru of the UK and beyond, I will call her. Thank you so much for your time today. We'll be back in about 4 weeks' time with another episode. Until then, stay safe, take care, and have fun.